Do what you love may be the most well-intentioned bad advice of all time.
Yeah, it sounds good unless you're 52, have a mortgage, and your passion is restoring vintage pinball machines.
Most adults have bills, obligations, and responsibilities.
And chasing your passion for too long is more likely to lead to debt collectors than a record deal with a famous label.
The truth is, most people didn't start out doing what they loved. They started with what was available.
Then they got good at it and built skills.
And those skills ended up shaping everything that came after.
We're not saying that there's anything wrong with loving what you do,
We're saying that's just not how most adult lives work.
and sometimes that's exactly how you end up building a life you actually love.
For all but a tiny fraction of people, real life is not built around a single dream or unlimited freedom.
Right. Most people don't get handed some perfect path. They take the job they can get,
And that job may not be the dream.
but it can be a learning ground where you develop skills and get good at something.
And those skills can follow you into the next job, the next phase of life, or the next problem that needs solving.
Let's be honest, nobody grows up dreaming of being a procurement manager, but if you get good at it and it pays well, it starts looking like a pretty good plan.
That's it. Sometimes the thing you thought was just a paycheck shapes you in ways you didn't see coming.
That's the part we want to talk about today. We're going to get more personal about how that played out for both of us.
And why some of the best stuff came from jobs we didn't start out loving.
So, you didn't start out dreaming of becoming a dean, right?
Not by a long shot. In fact, I don't think that Dean is on any career exploration inventory that you take in high school. In fact, I didn't even start out wanting to be a teacher. That was not on my radar. But actually, I guess life presented some opportunities. I never say no. I usually say, sure. When somebody asks me, can you do this? Can you do that?
And I get on to you for that.
That's for sure. So even teaching, right? My first opportunity teaching, it was just that, helping out a friend, and I couldn't say no. And it turns out that I actually found some things that I really enjoy about teaching. Not
hmm
everything. And little by little, you start building some skills, right? You start
hmm
building management skills, definitely classroom management skills that later translated into other management skills in other jobs. Same thing with communication, right? You become a little better at a time and being able to talk to audiences, talk to a classroom full of students, and even leadership, right? I mean, you have to
hmm
lead a class, you have to lead your students, and that again translates into opportunities into management.
So, were there parts of teaching that you liked right away?
I did. I was surprised actually
hmm
to know that I actually like some aspects of it. Definitely seeing that, light in my students' eyes when they get something, almost that light
hmm
bulb moment. Um, Again, being complimented by students because they liked the way I presented something or the way I managed the class. Those were great.
hmm
Now, the grading and the organization of paperwork and all that not so much.
hmm So, I know that teaching and being a dean have some similarities, but just by listening to you do your job, I know that being a dean is sort of its own little world. But you've already touched on some of the skills you brought over from teaching into being a dean. So, what skills specifically from teaching have helped you the most in your current job?
I think communication for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Having to identify typically a problem and communicate options and solutions to, the audience or whoever I'm talking to. For sure, making decisions under pressure. Sometimes you just have to turn on a dime, solve a problem, right, that comes up that you're not expecting. So all of those, definitely, I can see how the origins were in the classroom, and now I can certainly translate them into my current job.
So, would it be accurate to say you didn't fall in love with the whole job, but with certain aspects of it? And the skills you got from teaching carried over and helped you build your current role as a dean?
For sure. And I always say, I mean, it's impossible to love everything 100%,
Oh,
but
yeah.
if you like, 90% of what you do, hey, you can live with that.
That's a win for sure.
For sure. Now, let me ask you, what about your trajectory in television? How did you get started?
Well, you already know the famous or the infamous story of how I started in TV. I had just gotten out of the military, and I knew I wanted to go to college, but I had no idea what I wanted to study. So literally, I got a college catalog, brought it home, closed my eyes, opened it up, and went bloop. I opened them, and it said broadcast communications. That's where my finger was, and I said, okay, that's what I'll do. And honest to goodness, that's how I chose it.
That is crazy. So then you went to school, and I think, right, you wanted the creative aspect of television.
Yeah. I had always aspired toward the creative end of things. Books have been my lifelong passion, so I always kind of in the back of my head wanted to write. I aspired toward, the creative end of things, and I thought that's the end of TV I wanted to get into.
But what was then your first job and then your jobs on television?
Well, I got an internship at a local TV station, and it was working in the production department. So I fell into the technical end of it for my internship. And then at the end of the internship, a part-time job came up, doing what I'd been doing in the internship. So I took that. And then the station literally right next door got a full-time opening, and I took that, but it was also in the technical end. So I sort of just fell into the technical end of TV by accident.
Right. And so did you expect the technical side to lead to creativity later on?
I didn't see it at the time, but that's exactly how it ended up turning out. I'm sorry, but those technical skills ended up making a good partner with creativity later down the road.
So what were some of those technical aspects that you then translated into other jobs?
Well, just problem solving, learning problem solving, not panicking under pressure, because in a live TV situation, when you have a technical problem, well, you can't just freak out, because then you've got a garbage on air product.
So it would be fair to say that the passion got you in the door, but really it was the skills that built the career.
Absolutely. That's exactly how it happened.
So television was not your only career, right?
No.
You then became a truck driver.
Yeah.
Was that a passion of yours?
Oh, no, this was the unexpected chapter of my life. And it was the opposite of passion. I really never even cared that much for driving. And I just needed something different after my exit from TV. And you couldn't get much more different than this. Remember, I said I picked my TV career by literally closing my eyes and doing this. Well, the trucking career happened not entirely differently from that. Back in those days, I actually read physical newspapers,
What is that?
and there were ads ubiquitous. They were everywhere. Big trucks mean big bucks, and they were every time you opened the paper, they would be those ads, and I never ever paid them any mind until then. It's like, well, that would be different than TV for sure. So let's give it a go. And so yeah, I did a few things, but I guess TV and trucking were the things I did longer than anything else. And it's kind of weird that I just sort of stumbled onto both of them by accident.
And were there things that you enjoyed about trucking and things that you did not enjoy?
Oh yeah, yeah, the things that I enjoyed the independence and the autonomy. I didn't have a boss hanging over my shoulder. I finally got on with a company that if I did my job right, if I made my deliveries on time, made my pickups on time, didn't wreck the truck, they pretty much just left me alone. So that's the way I liked it. And so yeah, I like the independent aspect of it. I like the office view, best office view in America. And of course, there's things you don't like about it. Is living on the road is not easy. Yeah, I mean, it's a lifestyle more than it's a job, and a lot of people get into it not understanding that, and they don't last very long. So, yeah, like any job, there's things you like about it, things you don't like.
Did you ever expect truck driving to lead to writing?
Of course not. I mean, it seemed like the furthest thing from creative life, but after I got out there and started experiencing the life, I saw that there's a story there, and I started taking notes. And over time, those notes, I took some time off after a while to parlay those notes into the manuscript of my first book. So, yeah, I totally did not see that coming when I first got into it.
So it would be fair again to say that it was not the dream job to start out with, but it led to something that you love.
That would be absolutely fair. Yeah. So when you look at all of this, the bigger takeaway is that a job doesn't have to be your passion to be valuable. The real value isn't the job itself, it's what you learn while you're there. You're learning how to solve problems, how to deal with people, how to handle pressure, and how to figure things out. And the skills you develop don't stay tied to that one job, they go with you.
Right. Those skills start showing up everywhere. Teaching wasn't a lifelong calling for me, but over time, I learned how to communicate better, how to manage different personalities, how to handle conflict, and how to make better decisions. I didn't need to love every part of it for those skills to matter. They became leadership skills that eventually led to becoming a dean. None of that was part of some grand plan at the beginning.
And that's what people don't always see. They think they're choosing a job, but they're really choosing what they're going to get good at. In TV, I thought I wanted a creative job, but I fell into the technical side of it. At the time, that didn't feel like the dream, but those technical skills ended up translating across the industry, and later they teamed up nicely with creativity.
And sometimes you don't even realize what you're learning while it's happening. You just show up, do the work, and get better over time. Then, years later, you look back and realize those skills changed the course of your life.
Yeah, trucking was a perfect example of that for me. It wasn't a passion, it was just the next opportunity. There were parts of it I didn't like, but there were also parts I did. I liked the independence and not having a boss hanging over my shoulder, like I said before. I liked being out in the world and seeing the country, and I liked that it was a lot more interesting than sitting in a cubicle and pretending that was a life. And I had to get better at trucking, but once I did, I started recognizing the stories that the road had been giving me. And those stories led to writing my first book, which had only been a dream up to that point.
That's a great example because the job itself wasn't the passion, but it created the conditions for the dream to become real.
Yep. The job isn't always the destination. If you only focus on whether you love the job right now, you can miss the fact that it's building something valuable.
And those skills don't just help professionally, they carry over into life, relationships, decision making, leadership, confidence. The more capable you become, the more options you tend to have.
Which is why do what you love is limiting advice. It makes it sound like the only thing that matters is passion, but in reality, competence, growth, and adaptability are often what lead you to the things you eventually love.
You might not love the job itself, but you will love what it allows you to build.
And that's not settling. That's just how the structure of a meaningful life actually unfolds. Almost nobody stumbles into their dream job right out of the starting gate.
If you're one of the lucky ones who did, congratulations. But for most of us, it's a long, bumpy journey with multiple destinations.
The point we're trying to make here is this. Maybe it's not important to chase a job that feels magical on day one,
Maybe it's more important to keep becoming more capable.
because capability has a funny way of opening doors.
And those doors can sometimes lead to unexpected places.
We've both seen this firsthand. Turns out that the road you didn't plan on taking can still get you somewhere worth going.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
It might not fit your career, but it's still a solid decision. You know what's strange?
What?
We might actually have made a useful episode.
That'd be new.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't make a habit of it.
Why not?
People might start expecting things.